he's being accused of a lack of patriotism. And yet the conventional description of patriotism, very much still in play from the Bush era,
yes,
is at work in U.S. domestic conversations about foreign policy today.
Absolutely.
The Obama administration talks about a new era of engagement. You spoke earlier about a friendlier face of empire.
Yes.
What does that mean? Is that just marketing? Or is there actually a change in U.S. foreign policy these days?
No, I think what you have a limited terrain within the imperial context. Neoconservative, neoliberal. And Obama now tilts toward the neoliberal, so that he talks about multilateralism. Okay, that's a wonderful thing, but is it multilateralism that is real and substantive, or is it multilateralism still under U.S. auspices, you see? Same would be true in the Middle East, for example. Okay, now we're going to engage Israel in regard to settlements in ways that we didn't before. Well, you're still silent about Gaza. That's 500 precious Palestinians who were massacred before Obama said a word. Now, the whole world knows if those were 500 precious Jewish brothers and sisters, would Obama have said a word? The next second he heard about it. Now, you see, I believe that precious Jewish brothers and sisters and precious Palestinian brothers and sisters have exactly the same value. So I am as outraged when Palestinians are killed as I am when Israelis are killed. And it's just a humanist position, and also a Christian position for me. So where's the righteous indignation? Again, you see the hypocrisy in terms of being fair. Well, you see that neoliberal option within the imperial context is one that has a certain kind of rhetoric that's different. But on the ground, we still don't have the kind of execution based on the precious value, sanctity, dignity of each life, no matter who they are, be they in the West Bank, be they in Tel Aviv.
It sounds like you're arguing then that when you put a friendlier face on imperialism, it's worse, because it convinces some people that there's a change in policy when the spectrum is so narrow. Well, is it worse? Is it more honest to have a Republican in the White House?
It can be better because it generates new kind of progressive possibilities by putting certain kind of pressures on it. For example, even the debate about settlements. Okay, if in fact Israel refuses to freeze the settlements, then all of a sudden the hypocrisy of Israel becomes more and more apparent. Well, if no pressure were put at all, then that particular kind of moment would not have been manifest. On the other hand, if in fact we're able to show the degree to which Palestinian leadership is in disarray, and you still got various kinds of anti-Semitic elements being allowed to surface and so on, that also needs to be disclosed and revealed for the bigotry that it is. I do think that neoliberalism is in no way identical with neoconservatism. It's just that they're still within the imperial framework, and as an anti-imperialist and a humanist and a Christian and a leftist, I have to be consistent, even though sometimes it's a very lonely position.
You're also a master of dialogue. And you've been in dialogue with the Jewish community as one of the leading black voices in the United States in the last decades. When you look at the situation in U.S. policy towards Israel-Palestine at the moment, do you see the limits of dialogue? Do you see the limits of this endless talk shop when the reality on the ground is so persistently bad?
Yeah, it's a good question, though, brother. You know, Hamlet says, words, words, words. And unfortunately, when we don't have organized bodies that can bring power and pressure to bear to change status quos and regimes, words oftentimes are all we have. They really are. There are limits to dialogue, but we still have to pursue dialogue no matter what. In the end, of course, you know, those with the cannons can speak last for the moment. But for those of us who want a change, do not have the power, the potency, the efficacy at the moment to change, all we have are words. All we can do is lift our voices. You know, I come from a blues people. Our anthem is lift every voice. How do we lift the voices of the poor brothers and sisters in Gaza? Not just against the Israeli occupation, which is still quite vicious, but also against Hamas repression, which is ugly. How do we lift the voices of those prophetic Israeli brothers and sisters who are against the deeply conservative Israeli government that is fairly clear in terms of its unwillingness to be concerned about the deplorable plight of Palestinians under occupation.
Just to wrap up, it strikes me sitting in this kind of history-filled drawing room at Princeton, you are an Ivy League anti-imperialist.
Absolutely.
You've spent your working life in elite institutions. Why do you stay in these environments, apart from the great salary and other perks?
You're right. It's a ruling class institution in the sense that it is in the empire at the very top of the system of higher education. But because it has so many resources and because it has such a rich tradition of being open to different voices since the 60s especially, people like myself, Michael Wood, so many others who play a very important role in terms of anti-imperialist activity, Eduardo Godava, we can go on and on, are able to be here. Eddie Glaude, my boss, my young brother who's my boss, he's part of the same tradition of being concerned about critiques of American empire in the name of what? Deep democracy. In the name of what? Substantive freedom and so forth. So that it's a paradox in a way that my own beloved Princeton University would be a place where this kind of anti-imperialist dialogue would take place intensely, unequivocally, sincerely. But keep in mind, I spent a lot of time in prisons, a lot of time on the street, a lot of time in studios with hip-hop artists, a lot of time in temples, synagogues, and churches. So this is just one context among others for me to bear witness, to be faithful until I die, to struggle for poor people.
Thank you for sharing this context with us.
What a blessing. Thank you so much, my brother. Definitely. Indeed, indeed.